really is great to be back preaching. It's one of the things I really love doing. I love studying the Bible. I love to be able to communicate that, especially for our church. I enjoyed, though, being ministered to. I don't know about you, but those guest speakers, they rocked my world. They did such a great job, and I really want to thank everybody who's dedicated to making Revive Church a great place, because every one of our speakers, when they came, they said, this church has something so unique. And then they've been to tons of churches. They said, there's something different about Revive, and that we take that as a high compliment. Christopher Fajians, who spoke a couple weeks ago, he went back and told his team, y'all need to act more like Revive. And we were like, okay, stop, don't do that. But he was just so impressed with everybody. But some people ask me, why did you come to church during your sabbatical? Why were you here? You could have gone to any church, traveled anywhere. And the truth is, the heart is this, because even though I was taking a break from preaching and working at the church that month to rest and seek God, you are still my church family. This is still my church home. And while I would have loved to go to a bunch of other churches, when we talked about it, my wife and I, we really knew this is where we should be. This is where I worship. You are my church family. And so as your pastor, I want you to know that when I take a break, it doesn't mean I go somewhere else. I want to come here. I want to have the same excitement you are. I want to learn what you're learning. I want to do and see what you are doing and seeing. I want to see what God is doing through us together. And so I just want to thank you for allowing me to take a break, but I'm back better than ever, rested up, ready to go. And I really believe that God's got a message for us today that's going to help us become better aligned to what God is doing through all of us at Revive Church. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast, thank you so much. Be sure to subscribe and rate and listen closely today, because you're going to get a sneak peek into what we're going to talk about in the next 3 weeks here at Revive. How many of you remember when you were a kid sitting too close to the television and hearing your parents say the words, "Get back or you will go blind," or your eyesight will go bad, or whatever they said? How many with glasses and contacts realize it was kind of true a little bit? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, it was a little bit true. And it's not our fault, though. Like, I realized this the other day. It clicked when I was writing this message. It was never my fault that I sat close to the TV. I was trained to do that by Nintendo. Because when Nintendo came out, they had a cord that was only like 2 feet long. So you had to stand right in front of the TV, because if you pulled all the slack out and you got mad and you threw your controller, you threw the whole TV system with it, and then you got a whooping. And so we were taught to stand close. So if we throw it, it would bounce a little bit, but the cord wouldn't rip the whole thing. And so Nintendo, that's their fault that I wear glasses. I should sue. I bet today, in today's world, I could probably sue and get some money for that somehow, some way. I don't know. These kids today, they got it so easy. They got wireless controllers. They can literally be across the room in the kitchen making dinner, playing video games at the same time from 1,000 feet away. It's amazing. But my parents always told me, don't sit so close to the TV. Your eyesight's going to go bad. And as you can see, they were correct. And as a glasses wearer, I take every couple of years to go back to my optometrist, because I have to get a new prescription. And new prescriptions are the worst, man. But when you sit down in the chair, the first thing you will see in every optometrist's office, no matter where you go, is an eye chart. And it looks a little bit like this. They'll put it on the screen for me. This eye chart is called a Snellen chart. Everybody say Snellen chart. It was developed in 1862 by an ophthalmologist named Herman Snellen, and it's designed to measure what's called your visual acuity. Everybody say visual acuity. You sound so much smarter just saying that word. Visual acuity. And there's a formula for the visual acuity, according to the Snellen chart, to measure your visual acuity. And this is where we get the term 20/20. Now, I don't want to describe how it works, because it's very confusing. It's got a lot of different words and calculations to it. But essentially, it has to do with how far away you are from the chart when you read it, and how tall in millimeters the letters are. That's really all I know about it. And we get that term 20/20 vision from it. How many of you have 20/20 vision without glasses, prescription, or anything? I hate you. All of you. Hate all of you. No, 20/20 vision means you have perfect vision. You can read well. You can see far away well. I have like 21/20 in one eye and like 21/80 or 190 in another eye. I don't have good vision at all. I can barely see when my glasses are not on. I know some people are like that. I had somebody come up to me after the first service, and they were like, 21/20, that's great. Try 2700. I was like, oh, that's bad. But some of us, we have that. And it's crazy, because when you go in for a new prescription, they always have to adjust the prescription just enough to get your eyesight perfect again, right? And as glasses wearers, those of you who don't wear glasses, you don't understand this. You don't wear contacts, you don't understand this. But when they change your prescription, they put the new glasses on for the first time, and your vision just starts going like this because your eyes are trying to adjust to the new vision that you have because they've made a bigger burden on your eyes to correct themselves. And so the lenses of your eyes just start doing this weird stuff. And so for the first couple of weeks, I'm wearing my glasses, and I'm like, is this what it's like to be drunk? This is weird. I could barely walk because I felt like I was going to walk into a wall because I had to adjust to my vision. And today I want to help you understand the difference for a follower of Jesus between what we call vision and what we call sight. 2 Corinthians 5:7 says that we walk by faith, and if you've heard this before, we don't walk by what? Sight. Now, some of you have never heard that before, and that's totally okay, but this is a common scripture for Christians, especially if you grew up in church. You've heard this before. We preach that we walk by faith, and we don't walk by sight. And for somebody who's never heard that before, they're like, you're an idiot, because you definitely walk by sight. You need to look where you're going. You need to know where you're headed. But when we separate these two understandings of faith and sight, we see in the Bible that there is a distinction between the things that we can see and the things that we cannot see. There's a big distinction between what you can see and what you cannot see. See, faith in and of itself biblically is defined as the evidence of things not seen. So I want to draw a line between these two words, vision and sight. Sight is what you see with your eyes. It needs correcting. Slowly, as you grow older, you move from one lens to two lenses, and then you start reading like this, essentially. I've seen it happen to many people, and I'm sure I'll get there one day. Your vision deteriorates over time. Sight is what you do with your eyes. Vision, however, it's what you see with your faith. Sight is what you see with your eyes, but vision is what you see with your faith. If I asked you today, what is the vision for your life? What is the vision for your children? What is the vision for your marriage? What is the vision for your job, for your career, for your college education, for your singleness, for your sexuality, for your identity? What is the vision for this or that? Most of us would give us a very generic answer, and it would sound something like this. What's the vision for your finances? I'm going to be a millionaire. Okay. Why? Money. We don't really know why we want money. We don't have vision. What's the vision for your marriage? More sex. No laughs on that one because some of you are like, dang, he right. That's good stuff right there. Whoa. Why? We don't answer that. What's the vision for you going back to college after all these years? Well, I want to get my degree. Why? What's the real vision behind that? Most of us, we give a generic answer because we really don't know what the vision is for our lives. We don't know what the vision is for different aspects of our lives. And in the Bible, it talks about vision so many times very clearly, and specifically in the book of Proverbs, chapter 29, verse 18, it says this, where there is no vision, the people perish. Where there is no vision, the people perish. And when I used to read this, I used to think, well, yeah, that makes sense. Because I thought if the people have no vision, it means they can't see where they're going, and so they fall into traps, or they fall into pits, or they fall into destruction. But that's not what God was saying. Over time, as I've grown and matured, I realized that the reason why God said that where there is no vision, the people perish, is because when you don't have a clearly defined, God-given vision, you will attribute God to every circumstance of your life. Whether it's good or bad, it's God. But the problem with that is when you don't have a clearly defined, God-given vision for certain aspects of your life, for very specific aspects of your life, then over time, the more bad things that happen, the more you begin to blame God. And the more you begin to blame God, the less you want of God. And the less you want of God, the less you have of God. And the less you have of God, eventually you will slowly self-destruct into being perished. The word perish means it takes time to destroy. Your fruits are perishable. You ever had a perishable item? You ever bought salad at the store and the expiration date says one thing but reality tells you differently. Salad doesn't go bad overnight. Your fruits and vegetables don't go bad overnight. Meat doesn't go bad overnight. It slowly takes time. It slowly perishes away. And in the same way, when we don't have a clear distinction of our life, of what the vision is for our life, what the vision is for our family, what the vision is for our marriage, what the vision is for our singleness, what the vision is for our career, what the vision is for our college education, what the vision is for our everyday lives. When we don't have vision, we just attribute God to everything. And then eventually every bad thing becomes God. And then we begin to walk away from God and we begin to slowly perish. It's important to have vision for your life because if you have a clearly defined, God-given vision for different aspects of your life, then you will always know, regardless of the circumstance in this season, God's vision will always come to pass. You'll know the difference between God and not God. Because when someone tells me something contrary to the God-given vision, the clearly defined God-given vision for my life, if they say, I've got something for you, and it doesn't match up with the clearly defined God-given vision for my life, I know it's not God. And so just like our sight, what we see, we have to have visual acuity. We have to measure our vision using the chart that we looked at. We also have to have what I like to call vision acuity. You have to know how to measure whether or not your vision is healthy, whether or not your vision is 20/20, whether or not your vision is going to slowly lead you to perish, or whether or not your vision will succeed. And so I want to take you to a book in the Bible. It's a very small book by a guy named Habakkuk. Never name your kid that. Habakkuk. Habakkuk in the English, and the Hebrew I won't even try. By the way, that's Bible school education, paid 6 figures so I could spell Habakkuk, hallelujah. But Habakkuk, we're going to call him HBK for short. HBK, when he writes, he's having this conversation with God. And it's just a short little book in the Bible. And in fact, HBK is called what's called a minor prophet. When they teach Bible school students, they have minor prophets and major prophets. And Habakkuk, HBK, he's a minor prophet. HBK, he's having a conversation with God because he's in the midst of a scenario where the people of Israel are being attacked by these people called the Chaldeans, and the modern day name is the Babylonians. The Babylonians are coming in, they're burning crops, they're taking land, they're taking the people into slavery, they're taking over homes, and HBK is having this discussion with God. His faith is wavering, and he goes to God while he's serving in the temple, and he has this crying out moment to God. God, this cannot be you. This is crazy. Surely the faithful God would not let his people suffer under the hands of the Chaldeans. Surely you would not do this thing. And he's just crying out to God to say, hey, I need an answer here because I don't have a vision for the outcome. I don't have a vision for the people that I'm trying to lead. And in the Old Testament, the way that people heard from God was through these people called the prophets. They were chosen specifically. They were trained specifically to hear from God, hear from the voice of God for the people. And in chapter 2, HBK hears from God. And in this little book, he begins to write some of the most profound words I've ever heard, ever read before. Something that matches up with things we read in the New Testament, things that what matches up with what we read in Proverbs just a second ago. He talks about vision. And I believe he gives us 4 questions to ask ourselves and 4 questions that help us measure our vision acuity. Somebody say vision acuity. Our vision acuity. As we get into HBK chapter 2, I want to read you verses 1 through 4. Just 1 through 4. We're going to focus in on these 4 verses here. He says, I will stand my watch. So he's cried out to God, and now he's waiting for a response. He says, I will stand my watch. I'll set myself on the rampart. In other words, I'm going to do what I know to do. I'm scheduled to be right here, and so I'm going to stand right here, and I'm going to watch to see what he will say to me. Notice he says watch, not hear. There's a reason. Because he's not watching with his eyes, he's watching with his faith. In other words, he's receiving vision. He said, I'm going to receive a vision of what God is going to say to me and what I will answer when I'm corrected. The Lord answered me and he said, write the vision. Those are the first 3 words from God. Isn't that amazing? He says, write the vision, make it plain on tablets that he may run who reads it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it will speak and it will not lie. Though it tarries, wait for it. Tarry means it's going to take some time. Because it will surely come, it will not tarry. Behold the proud, his soul is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. So I want to give you 4 questions today to help you measure your vision acuity for your life. If you're the person who says, I don't even have vision, you need to listen closely because I want to help you get a clearly defined, God-given vision. I want you to know when God speaks to you, and sometimes, here's the thing, God has given me vision and it's been clearly defined, and other times God has allowed me to set the clearly defined vision, and he still blesses it. And so whether or not you have vision, you need to listen closely because you're going to be able to measure your vision acuity based on these 4 questions. Now, some of you have the Revive Church app, so you already know the 4 questions. Just stick along with those of us who are technologically challenged and have not gotten to all 4 questions yet. Number 1, here's the first question you have to ask about your vision. Does my vision require conviction? Does my vision require conviction? HBK is calling out to God. He says, I'll watch to see what God will say to me. He said, God, go ahead and speak. But his first words after that are not, God, go ahead and speak, I'm listening. He says, I will watch to see what he says and what my answer will be when I am corrected. The same word for correction here is the same word for convicted. In other words, when God gives you vision for your life, when God gives you vision for your purpose, when God gives you vision for whatever aspect of life you're believing for vision, a clearly defined God-given vision is always about a better you. When God gives you vision, he's going to convict you. He's going to flat out correct you. To HBK, he talks to HBK, he said, look, the problem with your vision is you have a vision of God allowing the Israelites to be destroyed. And God comes back when you read the whole book and he says, my vision is not that they be destroyed. In fact, my vision is that the Chaldeans come under the judgment of myself after they are done. He said, my vision behind all of this is to separate the sincere people who really serve me and the hypocrites who say they do but don't really. He said, I let the Chaldeans in to stir things up a little bit because we're going to see who really trusts God and who says they do, but they don't really. And Habakkuk has this moment where he says, whoa, God, that's convicting. Every time God's given me a vision for my life, for my marriage, for my health, oh, God Almighty. I hate it when God gives me a vision for my health. Because it means more green, leafy vegetables and less sugary snacks. Jesus. Every time God's given me vision for anything, the first thing that's always happened is it convicts me. It always challenges me. In my heart, I realize that I have not trusted God enough. I realize that I have messed up in some way. When God gives you a vision to be free from something, there's a reason, because you're bound to something. And I'm not just talking about drugs, alcohol. I'm not just talking about pornography. I'm talking about you can be addicted or bound to debt. And God wants you to be free. When God gives you vision for things, it's always going to challenge your heart. You're going to go, but God, I'm not so sure that that's right because I like the way things are. And God says, yes, but I need to correct that because you are way too comfortable with the way things are, not the way I need them to be. Amen. And so I'm going to look at it from a different aspect. I'm going to be corrected. The first thing you have to ask is, does my vision require conviction? The second thing you're going to ask is, does my vision require people? So after you know you got convicted, a clearly defined God-given vision will always require people, because a clearly defined God-given vision is always beyond just you. We think vision is all about ourselves. We think vision is just about us. It's not. In fact, God says, write the vision and make it plain on tablets, multiples. And they didn't have Microsoft Word where you could copy and paste. They didn't have printers where you could just push print for 100 pages. No, Habakkuk literally has to type this into tablets, tap it into tablets over and over and over and over. He said that he may run with it who has it. In other words, as soon as somebody reads this and they get the vision in their heart, pass it on to the next person because it's for them as well. And then pass it on to the next person because it's for them as well. God had a vision for the Israelites. A clearly defined God-given vision will always go beyond you. It's not just about you. When I was an older teenager in my young 20s, I had this vision I was going to be a millionaire by the time I was 30. There's nothing wrong with having that vision. If you have that vision, you need to have that vision. It's a great vision to have. The problem with my vision is I wanted to be a millionaire by the time I was 30 so I could dress real nice, drive nice cars, have girls look at me and go, wow, that guy's sexy because he has money. My vision was all about me introducing myself to other people as a millionaire. I always wanted to be like, yes, my name is Steven, I'm a millionaire. I was young, dumb, stupid, whatever you want to call it, but that was my vision. Now I'm 33. Guess what my vision is? To be a millionaire by the time I'm 40. Guess what's going to happen? My wife and I are on track. We'll be millionaires by the time we're 40. But here's the thing, my vision changed. Because as soon as I hit millionaire status, you ain't going to know. I'm not going to go out and buy myself a Porsche. Well, I might, actually. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. I may one day, but not as soon as I hit millionaire status. My vision began to change because my vision, I was talking to my wife about this, my vision now is that we hit millionaire status so that whenever there is a need in this church, we write the checks. Some of you, you've never had a vision like that. Some of you struggle to even give God your 10%. Can I tell you something? If you had a vision to be a millionaire, not so that you could brag about what you got, but so that you could write checks for people who are in need, you'll have no problem ever tithing again for the rest of your life. I have a vision to be able to tell my children in the future, you will not pay a dime for college. My dad, man, God bless him, when we were young, my dad said he heard from God that God said he would pay for every part of my college, that it would always be paid for. My dad, unfortunately, didn't have the information that I have today, and so when I got to college, guess what? I had to take out a bunch of school loans. I don't know why he thought God equated paying for college with a bunch of school loan debt, but that's what I had. And I remember those days because it always drew a line for me. For many years, I thought my dad was a liar because he promised that God was going to pay for this, that my dad would be the one who would pay for it, but God would supply it, and I wouldn't have to ever take out a school loan. And I had, over $100,000 in school loans by the time I graduated. And so part of my vision now is that my children would never pay for a dime in college. So guess what my wife and I do? We invest. Slowly but surely, we invest over and over. I have a vision for my life that whenever my wife asks for something, whenever my wife says, hey, I need this, that there's always money to supply everything she wants and needs. Some of y'all got real convicted by that. Every single time, whenever she asks, my vision is that she gets a yes from me, that I never have to say, well, let's look at the budget and make sure we have that, but that we can say, yes, absolutely. My vision, I love y'all, but I don't plan on preaching for the rest of my life. My vision is to retire with my wife to a remote island or 1,000-acre farm that somebody else mows. And we're just naked all the time. That's it. That's all I want to do. That's it. Just retired. My vision that I've had, I want to be able to buy a car for someone one day outside of my family. I'm talking about somebody who's just in need. Me, myself, we took up a big offering and bought a family a car one time as a church. I'm talking about just me, myself, just buy somebody a car. Guess what? My vision one day is to buy someone a house. My vision shifted. It used to be just about me. I want to be a millionaire so I can say I'm a millionaire. And then I realized it has nothing to do with me. I'm just a steward of what God gave me. And now my vision is to be a millionaire, to be a blessing to so many people that they can never say that God did not care about them. It's always about people. The vision that God gives you for your life is always beyond you. The vision that God gives you for your marriage, can I tell you, it's not just about you, it's also about your spouse. Maybe God's correcting something in you so that your spouse will have less stress. Maybe God is convicting you men to lead in your family so that your wife doesn't feel like she's carrying the burden upon herself. Maybe God is calling you to love your children more because he understands that 10 years from now, there's going to be a group of people who do not have their good in mind, who will tell them that they love them. And if they don't know that they have the love of a father first, they will run to these people who have their destruction in mind because those people said that they love them, and they'll fall into the wrong crowd. But God is trying to establish a covenant of love between you and your children now so that they are not deceived later on by false love. I'm back. I'm telling you, I'm not Jordan. I'm not going to bring back any dirt. No, I'm talking real stuff here for you. This is our church. Let's get real. I'm not Brad Stroop. You're a friend of God. All right, cool. Let's get to the real stuff now. I love you, but you got to understand, vision is not just about you. It's beyond you. So I need to ask myself, does my vision require conviction? Does my vision require people? And lastly, or not lastly, but number 3, I got to ask myself, does my vision require a plan? Does my vision require a plan? When you look back, God told HBK, the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it will speak, it will not lie. In other words, the plan is going to happen, the vision is going to come to pass whether you like it or not. The question you need to ask yourself is, do I have a plan to get me from where I am to where the vision is? Because there's a big gap called the expectation gap. And we expect God to fill that gap. But God has called us to fill the gap with something called a plan so that we can move from where we are to where God has for us. See, Proverbs 16:9 says this, a man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. I used to think that meant that when I plan my way, God thinks it's not good enough, so he changes everything. I learned, though, thanks to technology, that as I got older, a GPS does the exact same thing. I have a vision to get home today. I know that if I go down Center Street and then turn on to Pioneer and then turn on to Cooper and then take 20, and no, I'm not going to go any further because some of y'all are going to try to stalk me, but when I know where to get to home. But if I turn on my GPS, even though I have a plan to get to home, the GPS will tell me if there is a policeman taking radar. The GPS will tell me if there is construction. The policeman will tell me if there is a wreck. And the GPS will direct me, keep me on the same plan, but direct me around some tragedies, around some obstacles, around some things that were never meant to be in my way. And so when I decide that I have a plan, God will direct that plan. The Bible says that he will direct every footsteps. He orders your footsteps. In other words, I'm here, but I want to get to where the vision is completed. So I'm going to have a plan. Take 2 steps to the left, take 2 steps to the right, take 1 step forward, take 1 step back. But before I take 1 step back, if God says no, there's something waiting for you back there that's going to harm you, that's not a part of the vision, not a part of the purpose, then take 1 step forward. Guess what? I'll take 1 step forward. Because while I have the plan, God has the direction. And if I know where I'm headed, if I have a clearly defined God-given vision, then I know that the vision is always about God blessing me. Some of y'all, you don't feel blessed, and I'm going to hurt your feelings, but it's for a purpose. The reason you don't feel blessed, the reason you are not blessed is because you're not. The main reason you are not blessed is because you have given God nothing to bless. Nothing. When you don't have a vision, when you don't have a plan, God can't bless you because you've given him nothing to bless. When you don't know where you're headed, when you're not paying attention, not with your sight, but with your faith, with your vision, God can't bless that. So I need to ask myself, God, does my vision require conviction? I need to go into a conversation with myself, say, Stephen, does my vision require a plan? Does my vision require people? But then greater than all 3 of those, this is the last missing piece, this is the thread that weaves the canvas together, is I need to ask myself, I need to go to God and say, does my God-given plan, clearly defined God-given plan, does it require faith? Does it require faith? Because a clearly defined God-given plan will always be bigger than you. Here's what the Bible says. So we go back to HBK. HBK is talking to God, and God comes back and he says, behold the proud, people with pride who think they've got it all together. They know the next step. They know what to do. His soul is not upright in him, but the just, they shall live by faith. The just shall live by his faith. The ones who are justified, the ones who have purpose, the ones who have vision, they will have faith. If my vision does not require faith, my vision is not from God. I know this is going to sound really strange and it might hurt some feelings, but here's the truth. If your vision is good enough for you to do by yourself, it is not a clearly defined God-given vision, because a clearly defined God-given vision will always require faith in God. A clearly defined God-given vision will not be just about you, something that you can produce, something you can work toward and do it by yourself. Because if that happened, you would get the glory. But God said, in all things I will receive glory to my name. And he said, I am the one who will give you vision that requires faith. I heard a minister one time when I was young. He said this one thing. He said, whenever God has given me vision for our ministry, I never had the money. And I always thought to myself, that sucks for you. He said, I never had the money. And I was like, well, what did you do? What happened? He said, I had to trust God. There was no other way. I had to put my faith in God. We just split 2 services, 9:30 and 11. Everybody loved the 10 o'clock. Why do we have to go to 9:30 and 11? Why? Because you didn't catch the vision yet. If you're asking yourself, why'd you go to 2 services? It's because all these empty seats around you. Every empty seat here. When you walked in, you saw empty seats. When I stood on this platform, guess what I saw? I saw every unsaved person, every unchurched person, every dying person going to hell. When I preach, I do not see your stinky face. Because if I focus on the faces that I do see, not in the empty chairs, guess what I would see? Some of y'all sleeping. Some of y'all scowl at me. Some of y'all get angry and offended. Some of y'all don't even want to look at me. Some of y'all down on your phone talking about, I'm looking at notes. No, you're not. You're DMing somebody. Don't lie to us. I have vision. When I get up in this platform, when I get up in any pulpit, whatever empty chair there is, I'm preaching to the empty chair by faith, not to you by faith, not just to you by faith. You say, what does that mean? It means that every time I preach, I imagine in my vision with my faith that there are chairs backed up all the way to the back wall, that every seat is filled with somebody who needs to know about Jesus. Every time I pull into the parking lot, I don't see an empty parking lot. I see cars filled on a paved parking lot all the way around the building. I see cars lined up down the street. I see cars in the Carter Junior High parking lot. I see us buying more land for more campuses. When I drive by buildings in Dallas, I see Revived Church. When I drive by buildings in Fort Worth, I see Revived Church. When I drive by buildings in Euless, I see Revived Church. When I flew out to California, I saw Revived Church. If I ever go overseas, I'm going to see Revived Church. Can I tell you why? Because every time I see something with faith, it shows me I cannot do it. So I have to rely on the grace of God. Yes, I'm back to blame it on Jesus, because if your vision does not require faith, you'll never receive the grace for the vision God has given you, because grace comes by faith. And when I've got faith to believe that God's going to take care of it, He graces me for it. See, as a church, I'm telling you, if you knew the stupid folks who say the dumbest things about our church, and every time they say something stupid, we had one dude who called us up and asked us for advice about, I won't say what, they asked us for advice. He went back to his leadership team and said, well, Revived Church does things this way. And they laughed at him. And they said, why would you listen to Revived Church? They're not successful. And I said, thank you so much. Drink your haterade. Go ahead. Because one day you'll see every part of the vision that God gave me for this church. One day you will eat your words. One day you will look to God and say, wow, how did they do that? Only by the grace of God. Because the pastor would not shut up. The pastor would not keep moving forward. The people would not stop inviting people to show up every morning. The people would not stop giving. The people would not stop praying. The people would not stop fasting, because they caught on to the vision that this is just phase 1 of what Revived Church will be. And I know that we can't do it, but I know that God can, because He is faithful. If your vision does not require faith, it's not a clearly defined, God-given vision. So I got to ask myself, does my vision require conviction? Does my vision require people? Does my vision require a plan? And finally, does my vision require faith? Because when you have those four components, you can measure your vision acuity, the health of your vision, and you can start to see maybe the vision was more about me than others, maybe the vision was more about me than God. And as you correct it, you take a prescription of faith and you begin to say, God, challenge me for more, challenge me to do more, not because I believe I can take it on by myself, but because it will lead me back to you to say, Jesus, I need more of your grace, I need more of your mercy, I need more of your spirit. And when I see the fruit, when I see the vision finally come to pass, I'll remember day one when Pastor Stephen said, it convicts me, I need people, I need a plan, and I'm going to have some faith. And it came to pass. And I'm telling you, church, the vision for this church will come to pass because everything that we do, we will continue to introduce real people to the real Jesus.